Today's episode is for the grown kids who don't think going $300,000 into debt for a college degree is a good idea, the ones that want to find success through other means, maybe trade work, and the ones that want to shape their own path to wealth and a career.
So we'll be exploring the question, how do you build wealth in a career without a college degree? To find that out, we'll be exploring if college actually guarantees you a good life, what other options are besides college, and just how to build your career in general.
To guide us along, we'll be joined by lots of incredible people who built both blue-collar and white-collar careers without a college degree, including a plumber that rose the ranks and is now doing property management for A-list celebrities and other high-profile clients, a 21-year-old who decided not to go to school because he was scared of being in debt, a 22-year-old who dropped out of high school to pursue software and app development, and also Christopher Zara, who recently published a book called Uneducated, which documents his experience living life and building a career without a college degree. And finally, our expert guest who will make us make sense of everything is David Deming, who's an American economist and a professor of public policy at the Harvard Kennedy School and a professor of education and economics at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, whose research focuses on higher education, economic inequality, skills, technology, and the future of the labor market. So let's get into the episode. Hi everyone, welcome to GrownKid. I'm Gael.
And I'm Kayla.
And we're just two 20-year-olds who feel like grown kids and don't really know where our life is going or if we're even prepared for it or let alone how to plan for it.
So that's why we decided to make this show, a podcast where we'll be exploring the career and life issues that we're experiencing as we transition from being teenagers to young adults. And throughout the episodes, we'll basically help you get your shit together by talking with experts and researchers who'll give us actual advice and tips to just help us navigate this really stressful and confusing time.
Anyways, welcome to GrownKid.
GrownKid is made possible by the Schultz Family Foundation, dedicated to helping young people unlock their full potential and successfully navigate to fulfilling careers. GrownKid is made in partnership with Joy Coalition, where purpose-driven content means powerful storytelling. From 13 Reasons Why to Unprisoned, Joy Coalition projects are made to bridge generations and drive groundbreaking conversations.
What did you want to be when you were young? Big question. If
Very
you can
big
remember.
question. A mom. No, I'm just kidding.
A caretaker.
A caretaker. No, I didn't want to be a mom. I remember as a kid, like, oh, this is so...
Fellas, is it cringe to have dreams as a kid?
No. Yeah, so when I was little, you know, you get like your packets from school, like, you know, your math packet, you get little booklets, etc. I would save those. I would take them home and I would make sure to not throw them away. I would organize them. And then I would go in and erase what I wrote so that me and my friends could play like teachers. And I would like pass out the booklets and be like, okay guys, so you guys are gonna be doing this, this, and this.
Wait, low key though, that's like effective studying strategies?
That's how I feel. I'm like, I'm helping you guys out right now.
I would
like,
be so happy if I was in school and my friends was like, do you guys want to play teacher? But with you as a teacher.
Exactly. No, I loved playing teacher as a kid and then weaned out. And then I was selling ninja stars, origami ninja stars on the side as well. You know, 50
Ninja
cents.
star seller for a living?
Like, oh, what colors do you want? I'm writing it down in my notebook.
Right.
50 cents,
Okay.
check.
Entrepreneur from the very... Kayla expressed interest in entrepreneurship from a very early age.
Through origami.
Origami.
Exactly. And then in high school, I wanted to be, what are they called? Like an OBGYN. So they basically like do the ultrasound and they like take the baby out. Because I love babies. I love, you know, just being with kids. And then I think for the most part, though, I've noticed that I've always gravitated towards like helping people in one way or another. Like even in high school, like I was tutoring like elementary schoolers and also high schoolers. And
so you never had like a dream company or something like that?
No, it always just varied. And then now I'm like essentially living part of the dream. Yeah, I think I just have a lot of things that I want to explore still, But yeah, what did you want to be?
Well, I think I remember this okay, in second grade, you know, they have those sheets where you do like, my name is, and this, what the first job I remember ever putting down in one of those was like a dentist in second grade, but just ignoring that, I guess. But in reality, I think the very first job when I was actually conscious was in fifth grade. I wanted to work at Google. That was like,
Nice.
I was like, I really want to work at Google. I just thought Google was like the coolest fucking company.
Even now, it is somebody's dream job because it's an amazing job. You get lots of benefits.
Yes.
The security is there. Cool.
Yeah, no, Google was like the dream job for me. Didn't really give too much thought as to what one does at Google. I just
Google search.
Yeah, you just, search things
random
up.
things, yeah.
But I knew I wanted to work at Google, and then after that, I wanted to be like a video game designer.
Oh, nice. Like an animator?
That was in sixth grade. No, I don't fucking know. Video game designer, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. And then after, I think when I entered middle school, is when I kind of stopped having a dream job or an ideal career. And there wasn't really anything I wanted to do. And it wasn't until like freshman year, which is when I really started diving into entrepreneurship. But I didn't actually see it as, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew like I wanted to make money. How the fuck am I going to make money? Let me figure out things to do on the internet to make money. So I started selling clothes. I started like selling little journals and glasses and random things to make money. And so I did that. And then when I was 15, that's when I started Teenager Therapy. And for those that don't know, that's my last podcast that I hosted with Kayla. We started it when we were 15. And so that was my job for a good bit. And I feel like after Teenager Therapy and after the success of that show, I don't think I ever really thought again about like a dream career. Like, to be honest, I never, all I knew is that I wanted to do something in business and in this idea of growing something and have it be bigger and bigger. Because it was this game that I was obsessed with called Cookie Clicker.
I remember you mentioned.
Yes. And where you would just click, and it was like a business game where you would make cookies and then buy tools to make more cookies. And I loved that game. And I think that's ideally, it's like in an ideal world, I want to get the same feeling that I get out of playing this game out of my job. And I guess it just coincidentally turned into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I do also feel though that sometimes the term, I feel like it's kind of limiting sometimes, that like you have to like be in this one. Like, why can't it be dream careers, plural, dare I say? You know, it's like, why would you want to, I mean, yes, like do something for a long time, but like, do you want to do it forever? You know, like, don't you want to experiment with different things?
I think that's what I felt in high school, is that I knew that I never wanted to do the same thing. Just the idea of a dream career to me felt more like a trap than how others might see it, which could be like stability, like financial stability, because you do get that. But I was like, there's no fucking way I can have a career. Like, you mean I'm supposed to do one thing for the rest of my life in maybe slightly various ways? No, it's like my ideal career, to be honest, is just doing whatever brings me joy and making a living through it.
I think my dream, not career, but I just don't, like, my dream is not worrying about money.
Yeah.
That's it. Dream period.
Don't give a fuck how.
Like, I just don't want to have to ever worry about how I'm going to pay for something, or like, you know, feeling restricted. How does that manifest in a dream career? I don't know. And that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay, well, you're in school, and what are you studying, and why did you decide to study that?
So I am studying business administration. Amazing major, amazing. When I was choosing my major, or it wasn't always business, let me say that. It was accounting at first.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was crazy. And I remember talking about that on the podcast too, about like my major being accounting. Anyways, the past podcast, Teenager Therapy, that we had. But anyways, I originally did accounting because I was like talking to my brother. I was like, damn, I don't know what to do. And keep in mind, he doesn't really know either. You know, like the blind leading the blind here.
Yeah.
You know?
Computer science.
Yeah, exactly. And he was like, you know, like accounting, like you get like stable jobs, like you'll like be guaranteed like, you know, XYZ. And I was like, well, that sounds amazing. Sign me up, you know, like just like that, you know, it's accounting. And so I did that for the first year and a half. And then I realized, what the fuck am I doing in accounting? Like me.
Like, it's not for you.
Like it just wasn't me. I was just like, I don't find any enjoyment in this. I think this is more of a dreading thing that I just have to do, you know, like in my classes that I was taking. I just wasn't like, I really love what I'm learning. And I'm sure that some people do love accounting, but that just was not me. And so then I switched to business.
Okay, well, okay, that's the other thing though, because there's research that shows like a bunch of fucking accountants are gonna retire this year, and
Really?
or like in the following couple of years, like a bunch of accountants are gonna retire, which means we're gonna have a shortage of them, and so people should do accounting. But then you think about, well, okay, well, is AI gonna take the role of accountant because it's just inputting numbers? Are we always? And so there's like that instability. Is that one side says like we need more accountants, but then you're like, but how the world is changing.
Exactly.
I don't know, you can't predict
There's
it.
just so many factors to weigh in when you're choosing like your major, because essentially what you're told is, oh, this major is what you're going to be doing post college, and post college is forever. And so it was just, you know, a lot. But even just beyond accounting and business, when I was going into college, I didn't have a view of other majors besides biology, engineering, you know, business, or like computer science, whatever the fuck, like just the main ones. Like I didn't know that there were majors for like graphic design or like something in the arts, you know, like not that that would have been any more financially stable of me.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I would have.
Well, yeah.
But I just did not. I was not aware of that, and so
I think business isn't the worst.
no,
Yeah, that's a
I
good-
know that business isn't the worst, and especially like the school that I'm at, where they're like known for their business school. I would have liked more creative freedom with my major. And yes, there are marketing classes and such, but it wasn't necessarily the creativity that I wanted from those classes. Like, there's this one major, it's media arts and practice, and I had a lot of friends in it, and I was like, wow, that looks really fun. But again, I think most of all, I just wanted a degree. I really want a degree, and I just want that to my name, because like nobody can take that away from me. You know, like that is mine. Like I have this title to my name. And especially coming from, you know, a first gen background, I just see a lot of importance and significance attached to it, more than just like, I'm just going to college just to go to college, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think the point, you know, like going back to a major like accounting, how do you find a career that pays the bills while also giving you room to pursue your passion? And I do think that like part of the issue is that people get told you could only do one. You know, it's either you follow your passion and you're broke, or you pick a good career and you're stable but filled with no meaning and just burnt out eventually, probably. So my goal, even from freshman year of high school, was like, how do I create a name for myself? How do I create a project, a job, just something that is so successful that it gives me the option to not go to school? Because ultimately I asked, like, why do I want to go to school? You know, why would I want to go to college? And it's not even like the school where you learn most of the skills you use in your job. It's through like on the job training or apprenticeships or mentorships or something like that. Like when I talk to people and I ask them like, hey, do you feel like your degree taught you something? They're like, not really. I feel like I learned most of it on the job. The degree is just like the validation of, oh, you are capable of doing the job because you got this fancy degree
It's
or
like
this
a
paper.
stamp of approval
It's
from
just,
society
yes,
or something.
it is just a stamp of approval for society. And so to me, I was like, how do I make my own stamp of approval? And the only option was just do something really good, really successful, because if you prove yourself, then that should be enough. And so I made the podcast and it blew up. And that's when I was like, okay, well, clearly I'm pretty good at like marketing and like making these brands, because I was able to create something so successful that even people that have a college degree can't replicate. So I was like, okay, I think I'll be okay then because I'll be able to get a job because they'll recognize my skills. And part of what we talked about is skill-based hiring, that like more and more companies are turning towards hiring people for their skills and not just for the college they went to or the degree they have. And it's funny because like this is a lot more common in like the tech world, which tends to be a lot more progressive when it comes to these kind of things. But I think very much so, especially in the media space, like traditional media, you need that degree. And now that I have decided not to go to college and I'm creating my own company and we're doing Astro Studios together and all of that, I do find myself sometimes worrying about what my career could look like if this entrepreneurship thing fails and if like our company fails and it all crashes down and burns.
Which it won't.
Which it won't.
Which it won't.
But I think like, do I personally feel confident in my ability to get a job? I don't know if I necessarily can.
Really, I feel like you definitely should, Kyle. I think you have a lot of skills that college students don't have, and a lot of skills can't be learned in like a classroom and in an assignment. And I think especially too with like entrepreneurship, like a part of that you can't necessarily learn in a class. Like how to build a company from scratch.
I think that's the thing. Is that I have to remember that just because you have a college degree doesn't mean you know what you're doing. And it doesn't mean you have the skills to even do the job you're applying for, which is okay, like I said, because of on-the-job training and stuff. But now I have to remind myself and also remind those of you that are listening who don't have a college degree but do have skills, that you might feel like you have no skills because you have no college degree, but you really just have to believe in your ability to learn and in the skills that you do have and use that to apply to jobs.
Exactly.
Because it's kind of like an outsider's perspective. I see you going to school and I'm not in school, so I see this version of you as a college student and I think like, oh my God, they must be learning so much. Like they're getting all the skills they need to succeed in their job and I'm not. Like I gotta keep up, I gotta catch up. But then like once you actually talk to a lot of these students, they're like, I don't know shit. I am actually just as confused. It's kind of all a facade, really.
Exactly. And also I think too, like a lot of people, they're in jobs that they didn't need their degree for, or like they're in completely different fields than their original major. So I think another part of it is just who you know as well, like your network. I think especially now too with like the job market being so rough and specifically in business, you need to be like well connected, to like get a job. And so it's more than just going to college. And I've also been in projects with other, USC students, and I'm like, how? Like, just how?
How are you in this school?
Like, how are you in this school and how are you going to get employed after? And, their dad will probably hire them, which is fine. But again, just about perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. You have to believe in yourself. So funny to me that like Mexican parents are always like, knowing Spanish is one of the best skills you can have. They just made me believe that just because I speak 2 languages, I was going to get a job instantly, which it's funny looking back now.
It boosts your, resume.
It does boost your resume, and in certain skills it does. But I remember as a kid, I fully was like, holy fuck. Like, I'm going to be a millionaire because I fucking know Spanish. And yes.
So funny.
Like they really hyped it up. They were like, "You're bilingual. Don't forget. Make sure you put it on your resume." I was like, "Mom,
you're trilingual at one point."
Yeah, fucking taking Japanese and shit. No, so yeah, that's so funny. And now getting hit with the realities that like, yes, even small skills like that do come in handy. It's not gonna make your fucking career, but one step at a time makes you a little more hireable. So I guess that's a plus.
Yeah, a little bit unrelated, but recently I've been getting scared of losing my Spanish a little bit. And so
wow.
And so I like listen to Spanish podcasts now.
Just always on the grind.
Just to like really reinforce it. But anyways,
yeah.
Well, Kyle, I feel like recently you wanted to go to college again and you wanted to try the application.
No, so I had an existential crisis.
How old are you?
21 now.
Oh, that's so true. 21.
So here's what happened, guys. I'm 18. I say, I'm not going to go to college. I have the skills to get a job. I believe in myself. I'm confident that I'll be able to get a job even if everything fails. There's no way I couldn't. Like I can do this. I'm capable. Delusion, young delusion at its finest, probably the best advantage we have, maybe also our biggest weakness. Don't go to school. Spend the next 2 years building my last podcast, building this podcast, building, well, not this podcast, but the studio behind the Astro Studios, our podcast company, and do that. And then when my previous show ended in last September, I remember feeling a little lost in life because, you know, we were waiting to get confirmation on a couple of projects. Like basically my job that I had had since I was 15 ended. I'm not in school. I was like, not, you know, I'm at home. I still live at home. So I don't have that sense of community of the people that do go to college. And so I remember just thinking like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? I'm falling behind. I'm wasting my time. I'm lonely. I don't have like people to interact with. How am I going to, and then I started getting paranoid. Like, how am I going to get a career in 30 years? Like, I can't be a podcaster forever, right? And so I got really paranoid and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. Like, I don't know how I'm going to make money. Holy shit, what should I do? So I fully started researching different careers that would pay the bills. Like, that was my biggest worry. I was like, exactly. It was like, I was like, I need to find a career that pays the bills and also feels somewhat interesting. And it was so hard because I feel like what I'm interested in are things that tend to be a little bit more artistic, more creative. And that's not easy to monetize the way like STEM is. So I was looking at an industrial designer, you know, I was looking at graphic design, I was looking at communication design and media, culture and communications, things that are still involve my passions, but in a more professional way. And so I ended up applying to college, being like, okay, if I get into college, I'll go. Also because I just love education. I think it's a great thing. I wanted to go to school and have that community. I think it's so fascinating. The only schools I ended up getting into could not afford. So fuck me, can't do that. Ended up deciding like, okay, I guess I just can't go to school. But I feel a lot better about it now. I think it was just the combination of like one project ending, feeling lost, feeling meaningless. I realized that was leading me down to like spiral into what my life was going to look like. But I was able to just remind myself, if I follow that North Star, my purpose, my meaning, which for me tends to be like, how do you help young people feel less alone? And how do I do that? You know, right now it's through like media and like physical spaces and things like that. Then I think as long as I follow that, I'll be okay. And so recently I've been able to calm down a little bit more and just feel confident that I don't need to be this billionaire or a millionaire even, just as long as I'm financially stable and I'm doing the work that makes me feel good, I'll be okay. But like I said, I was so worried about just finding a job that pays the bills. And part of me did think about like trade work. It's like, maybe I should just learn a trade. And as we did research for this podcast and as we like talked to so many of these amazing people, I do notice that I'm like, you know what? Like picking up a trade doesn't sound that bad, especially after talking with like Dave, who had so much success by like picking up a plumbing skill and picking up that trade. It just made me realize like, if all goes to shit, 2 years in school, get a quick skill, pick up a trade, you're basically guaranteed an income. And then I can pursue my passion on the side.
I think there's just not, we don't hear enough like about happy plumbers. You know, I feel like people always just view like trade work in general as something that's to be like looked down upon.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, you don't want to do that, you know, like, and it's really not all that bad. Like it's a realistic option and it's not a bad realistic option. But
would you consider trade work?
Like, I don't know what I would do.
Because there's like, you know, you could work with AC units, you could do electrical work, you could do plumbing, you could do mechanical work, you could do, like, there's so many trades. There's data stuff, IT.
The thing is, like, I know that I'm sure that there's a job for me in trade work that I could, like, pick up. I just haven't given it the thought. But
it's kind of
give me a rough patch, girl.
No.
I'm
actually,
Googling.
But it is kind of comforting that it's so quick. It's you know, not easy, but relatively accessible to everyone, and it guarantees you a job. I think that's something that I have found a lot of comfort in, you know, genuinely recently, is that like a college degree isn't the only way. And that really helps. Part of it is the time, because, 4 years. And it's like, well, it's 4 years and then you do marketing. Like, you're not picking up these hard skills, but with trade and the trade school and vocational school, it's like, okay, yes, you will get it down. And there's no doubt about it. So it, especially like when you look at the surveys that just show like, oh, trade work is, people in the trades are basically pretty happy with their job. They feel good about their job prospects, financial security, job security. And so knowing that it is going to be around in 30, 40 years, I don't know, whenever I feel like I might need extra income, is really nice to think about.
Exactly. I think, again, people just don't know those statistics. And so they're just seen as like, you hate your life. Like, trade workers hate their lives. And it's so funny because I feel like trade workers have the stability that college graduates are looking for, which is like crazy. But Gal, you mentioned that, when the past podcast ended, you don't really have that routine, and like you once again realize like, oh, I have free will. And it's so scary and daunting because it's really up to you to decide what you want to do with your life and, make the most out of it. And I think with like college, it doesn't just offer you like that security of, yes, I'm getting my college degree, but it also forcefully gives you a plan for 4 years that like, oh, I have to follow this. It like, I don't think students, myself included, have that full recognition of like, I have complete and utter free will because of school, because that's our plan, that's the plan for 4 years. And I think when you realize that at an earlier age, it's obviously very like overwhelming.
Well, that's the other thing, I guess, that leads to this next point, which is like being a first gen, a first generation student. That impacts how we view work and our potential career.
Exactly.
I don't know about like for you though. For me, well, I'll speak for myself.
Not you.
Not you. No, I'll speak for myself that I think I honestly don't know if I ever felt the same kind of pressure to have a certain career / find financial stability, knowing that I'm a first gen student and I have to support my parents financially because I come from a low income family, and my single mother and my sister and I think other first gen students might feel this pressure of, I can't fuck around. You can't take any risk. You have to play it safe. You have to go to college. You have to get a high paying degree to get a high paying job, because your parents' retirement falls on you. It all is on you. But I don't know if I ever felt that pressure. And maybe I'm lucky because my mom was very much the type of parent to let me do my own thing and say, follow your passion, do what you want to do. I'm here to support you no matter what. But I know that this isn't the case for everyone, and that it's very much a very real thing that for most first-gen students, it's like you are your parents' retirement plan, so you can't fuck around, you can't take risks, you got to do the set route.
That, again, it's just that freedom. Like, your mom is like so incredibly, your mom is amazing, obviously, and like she gives you that freedom. But I also have that freedom. My parents were never saying you have to go to college, you have to be a lawyer, doctor, whatever. They sort of just like trusted me to do what I wanted, which is, I don't know if you felt this, Kyle, before, because I feel like we both have had that free will since the beginning. But sometimes I used to think like, damn, I wish you like pushed me to do something. Like, I wish you not cared more, but like,
just because
I wish you had more of a, yes.
I
was like, I wish you had more of a say in my life, even though like that's, looking back now, I'm like, I'm glad that did not pan out. But again, it's that guidance.
We wanted to feel supported. Yes. We wanted to feel supported.
Yeah, because they were just like, yeah, like do whatever you want. I'm like,
because our parents couldn't possibly know how to help. They don't know what the fuck is going on with
blind
school,
leading the blind. That's what
literally. But oh my God, yeah. Sometimes I do wish like my parent could have offered me different programs to join, different things, like not told me what to do, but shown me different routes that I can take. Because it was all up to us since we were like young to just figure it out.
Exactly. And Yeah, but that's a whole other thing. And I think also as well, seeing my parents work, not necessarily trade jobs, but like adjacent, seeing that pan out and just seeing like the dynamics because of that, and just like, how happy they were or lack of. That's why I never thought of trade work as an option for me, because it felt too close to home.
Really?
Yeah.
Did the fact that it felt too close to home make you feel like it was a failure to be in that? Or why is it being too close to home, why was that a bad thing for you?
I think it was a bad thing for me because of the financial instability.
Oh, that checks out. That makes sense.
Can you guys tell we grew up poor?
Yeah.
How many times do we have to say it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just seeing it pan out in real life, I didn't want that to be an option for me. And so I just associated, like, again, not necessarily trade work, but like trade work and adjacent and like financial instability together based on how I grew up.
Honestly, sometimes I wish I was like, I'm surprised I wasn't more scared of like fucking up my career. I think for one, I'm just very risk tolerant.
You are.
And I'm a little reckless. So I think I never felt oh my God, if I fail, it all falls. I was just like, no, I just won't fail.
Because that's not an option.
It's not.
It can't be an option.
But you know what I also say that I found a lot of comfort in is that like we come from the bottom and there's really not much lower we can drop. So it doesn't matter if I'm poor or not, because it's kind of how I've lived my whole life. So I might as well like follow my passions. And if I fuck up, then nothing changes. Or it's like high risk, no, low risk, high reward. Like I get a job that follows my passion and I make it big, or I don't and I have a normal income. Regardless, I have found happiness even as a kid. Being low income, I'll find happiness regardless.
Yeah, and I mean, I also think that blind faith that you have in yourself, people need to have more of. Because honestly, I feel like a lot of the time success can just be like, I don't want to say happy coincidence, but when you're consistent at something and you're like really dedicated to it, I feel like at some point or another,
it has to work.
It has to work. It has to work because it's like, well, you have to be consistent at it for a really long time, I feel. And I don't want to like, I don't want to push anybody to keep, doing something that's causing them.
Like if it's not working,
yes,
it's not working.
Exactly. If it's not working, it's not working.
Okay, you have to know when to quit, but you also have to know when to persevere. Mm-hmm. And how you figure that out, I don't know. Maybe someone can help us.
Write it down in the comments.
Write it down in the comments. How do you figure that out? Yeah, I agree. And on another note, do you actually even feel just prepared for like the job market? And I guess we could speak for both of us. I don't know. I just don't know if I'll ever get like a traditional job, but do you feel prepared?
I think I also feel like I'll never feel 100% prepared for most things in life. So there's that. But I think now, as I'm reaching my junior year, I feel I'm not completely lost. I know that. And that gives me some security. But I'm also not, or I don't know if I am, but like, can I start a leading role at Google? I don't know.
You know? Take it step by step.
Step by step, of course. But I feel moderately prepared, I will say. I don't feel as lost as I felt when I was like a freshman, for example, which makes sense because I think as you grow older, you feel just more secure with yourself. But I think with everything that we've been doing recently, I feel more positive about.
That you can handle it. You trust yourself.
Exactly, yes. That.
And especially in a more corporate job, not like entrepreneurship, where you have more guidance.
Exactly. That's, oh my God. Yeah. Keyword guidance here. We just want to be guided. Yeah. We need mentors. That's what we need, I think.
No, literally. Yeah. Yes. I think about that too, I think like the most fascinating thing is when I ask people, what do you actually do in your job? because you hear all these fancy titles, all these things, and it makes it seem like, holy fuck, I didn't learn this in school. I didn't learn this anywhere. How the fuck do people know how to do this? Like, you need people to show you that. And it's like step by step of somebody has to show you the ropes. That's why we need mentors. That's why we talk to so many cool people in this episode. We need that guidance.
Exactly. So I feel okay about it. Obviously, there's like those daunting times where it's like, wow, what skills do I have? Like, can I code? I can code a little bit actually. So mind your business. Okay. But yeah, I feel moderate about it, I guess. What about you?
You see, here's where I don't know. I just don't know because the skills that you develop as an entrepreneur and building your own company, I don't know if they're actually as applicable when it comes to like a corporate job.
I think they are though. I feel like they're, okay, actually, backtrack. I sometimes do get worried about that. Like, yes, we have so much experience, but is it applicable to like a corporate job? But I think it is, and if not, more valuable. Dare I say? Because it shows that you're like a self-starter and that like you're willing to problem solve. And
I think maybe we're overthinking it. I think ultimately maybe what every job requires is just the right attitude. Dare I say? Holy fuck.
That's come with a smile on your face.
No, but actually, like, I feel like if you're willing to learn, I don't think any job expects you to know what you're doing unless you're doing some highly technical thing. It's like,
unless you're surgeon.
Especially for young people, it's like they expect that you don't know and they're gonna guide you and they're gonna do it. So. I do feel prepared. But with that being said, I do want to talk with a couple of people that have made a living without a college degree. And first up is our friend Dave, who has such an interesting story because basically when he was younger, he was in high school. He was like, I really want to be a musician. Don't really want to go to school. So his dad was like, sure, you can pursue your passion if that's what you want to do. But like, you're probably going to be broke. So pick up a trade, pick up a skill so you can always have that to fall back on. Dave was like, okay, sure. So he ends up becoming a plumber. We'll let him say his story in a bit, but long story short, now he's literally like a property manager for A-list celebrities, Grammy winners, Oscar winners. He couldn't quite say who, but he told us and I was like, oh.
Let's just say you guys know who they are.
And so his story was fascinating. I don't know. I think it's such a good example of what we mean when why can't you do both? Why can't you pursue your passion and follow your dream? And sometimes trade work is that answer. So with that being said, here's Dave's story. So Dave, tell us, you were a freshman in high school. Are you thinking about college? What is your career and your life looking like back then?
So I went to a trade high school. So it's half classes, half you pick. I think there were like 15 different trades that you go through when you are a freshman. So it's like you spend 3 days in every single one, and then you pick 3 that you like, and then you spend 10 days in those. And after that, you pick like the one you want to do, which switches off between academics and trade. So I picked plumbing because it was the highest paying trade. And so you basically go through 4 years of high school, going from academics to trade school, like 2 weeks in academics, 2 weeks in trade. I definitely didn't want to do college. It wasn't for me. I already knew like I wanted to be a musician, which was like, I wanted to graduate high school and just jump on the road and start touring. And being in the trades allowed me to do that, which was great.
So did you choose to go to a trade high school? Because I had never heard of that.
No, my dad pushed me to do it.
Really?
He's like, you should just do this, just in case.
Are those common, like trade high schools?
I don't know. I grew up in Connecticut, and there was like the main high school across the street, and then my high school, Arva Wolcotech. Yeah, my brother went to regular high school, and me and my youngest brother went to the trade school.
So you're not thinking about college. Did you ever consider it? I mean, what?
No, I hated school.
Oh yeah,
hated it.
Music was your passion from
Music was
an early
passion.
age?
I fucked off in school.
Okay.
Like even plumbing, even in the trade part, I didn't give a shit. Like I still just didn't care about school. But luckily, like when I got out, I had that background. I never thought it would turn into like what it did, like what I have now, which is crazy to think about. But it worked out great for me.
Do you think like the stigma around not going to college or, being a plumber, do you think that affected your like perceptions of it, or like maybe you had doubts about doing it?
Yeah, I mean like plumbing I was always like embarrassed to say that's what I did. Even though like I was making, even when I was younger, like all my friends were dead broke in college and I was making money. And even my friends that when they got out of college, they still weren't making what I was making money wise, but it always just felt like weird to say,
like I'm a plumber.
I'm a plumber.
Oh, wow.
Because everyone, like, your mind goes to like this dirty, gross.
It goes to
job.
shit.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
Which like is not it at all.
Mm.
I mean, there's definitely people that do that, like drain cleaners and stuff like that,
Right,
but it definitely wasn't what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I always felt like weird saying that. I don't like, even when I first moved to LA, I don't think I told anyone that's what I did.
Yeah. So, okay, you're in college. You go, you find a trade while kind of fucking around in school. Don't really care, but you leave high school and you're a plumber. You have the skills. You started that career right as you graduate senior year. You're starting plumbing?
Yeah, my best friend growing up, his uncle owned a plumbing business in Connecticut, in the town I grew up in, and he immediately gave me a job, and I started working like the summer after high school.
And jobs were easy to find?
Jobs were so easy to find.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right?
Even like when I moved to LA, all my friends were like, a kid I lived with who like I moved here with for months didn't have a job, like ran through his savings, and finally after like 6 months got a job, and I got one like within 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Going back to what you were saying about the embarrassment that comes with, sharing that you're a plumber, were there certain parts that you think are overlooked that like, this isn't a bad job that you enjoyed?
For sure. I mean, and that, like I said, that's the thing, is like everyone's mind goes to like dirty, like plumbing and drains and shit. But what I did, like so basically like my job after high school was like brand new houses.
Okay.
So from the ground up, we would like do all the copper work and all the drain work, and it was very clean. And we worked in $10-15 million houses in Connecticut. So it's very high-end, intricate, custom stuff. And then even when I moved to LA, like I had that experience of working on these huge houses and everything. So I did that, new construction, and then it turned into like sales. So I would go out and like, because I knew a lot about the trade, I would go and sell things to people. Like, if I had to go, if they called because there's like a leaking faucet, they would always ask me to like look through the house and
what else?
Yeah, it turned into like, well, what else is wrong and stuff like that.
Okay. And at what age did you move to LA?
I moved to LA at 25.
At 25?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. And throughout this entire period that you're plumbing, you're also pursuing music on the side. What was that like?
Yeah. After high school, which was another really good thing about working in the trades, is that I was able to tour. I would leave and go on tour for a week, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, whatever it was, and then come back and always have a job. So it's been funding my music career since I was 17.
And like I feel like a lot of people, they have this idea that you can only have like one career or like one passion that you're pursuing. But you doing both, like, did that change the way that you perceived like just career and like success as a whole?
I mean, it definitely, like, I definitely wouldn't have been able to, I wouldn't have survived in LA to continue to do this without that. For sure. Like 1,000%. It's very hard. That's for sure. Working a full day job and then getting out after work and then jumping right into music. It's basically 2 full-time jobs, 7 days a week. But like I don't know. I've always been a very hard worker. And I think talent is half of it, and I think hard work is the other half. And I've always just tried to work harder than everyone else. It was always back and forth. I really started to love it when I turned it into like the design aspect of these high end, and I ended up working for the biggest A-list celebrities in LA.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. So my client list was insane.
Grammy winners,
Oscars. I mean, the biggest celebrities you could think of, and that turned into my clientele. I met a guy named Dan who was a property manager. And basically he just managed all these celebrities' properties, and he needed a plumber. And he called the company I was working for at the time, and I happened to be the guy that went out there. And Dan used to work and tour for a band called All Time Low, which I loved, and I even played some shows with when I was younger. So we instantly had this like connection of music, and I ended up being his plumber for like years. And then when I started my own business, Dan kept me on as his guy. And then Dan offered me to come like work in the property management world, which I am doing now.
And did you know anything about property management?
Not really.
No?
I mean,
You learn.
you learn.
You learn on the job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious
But I'm a
to know.
handy guy.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
So you figure it out.
So you figure it out, yeah.
That's an interesting part about this, is that it feels like a lot of students, especially college students, feel so unprepared for the job. And, you know, you go to trade school, you get formal training, but then you made this switch to a new career, property management. Were there fears of, can I do this? Was it always like, oh, yeah, I'll figure it out, easy? You know, what was that process like?
I think a little bit of fear in anything you do is good. But I just jump in and say, I'll figure it out.
Did you have mentors or anything that helped you throughout it all?
Yes, there's for sure. My old boss that I used to work for, Paul, is still like a mentor. And now that like I do property management, he's my plumber. So I hire him, just crazy because now he works for me.
Yeah.
And Dan too has been a huge mentor for me.
I feel like a lot of the times with trade work, a lot of people feel that you can't necessarily like scale up, or like if you're doing this job, you're doing it for the rest of your life. But I mean, like, what advice would you give to somebody that's like looking to scale up?
If we're talking money that you could make in the trades, I think there's no limit. If you work for someone, you're gonna end up capping out eventually. But if you're a driven person and you're motivated and you want more out of life, if you start your own business, you could make any amount of money you want. It could be as big as you want. There's plumbing companies in Los Angeles that bring in $50 million a year.
Wow. So what was your salary like starting when you were 18? I mean, were you making as much as you kind of hoped you would?
18, I was making, I think, $10 an hour.
$10 an hour?
Yeah. But
Whoa.
I graduated high school in 2007.
Okay.
So like was an apprentice wage. And then every year it went up and up and up. And I think by the time I like left and started my own business, I think I was making like $75,000 a year working for someone else. And then when I started doing my own thing, it turned into like almost $200,000 a year, like my first year doing it on my own.
Wow, through your own plumbing company. Okay.
And that was taking home that much after paying salaries. You know, I had 3 guys that worked for me. It worked. It was great.
And then when you started property management, that just shot up to like, you know, a completely different rate.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you think, especially when you're working in the trades then, and considering your own unconventional path, connections, ultimately everyone says it's all about connections.
Absolutely.
What kind of helped guide you along as you built connections with people? And there any things you learned about, you know, how you make friends, how you make allies, how you get people to join you and believe in you and the mission you're doing, like when you're hiring for your own company?
If we're talking about like LA specifically, LA is such a fake city. Nothing is real here.
Okay.
Everyone's full of shit. And I think
Even the plumbers?
Some of them. No pun intended.
You did that on purpose, right?
But,
Yeah, totally.
But I think connections are very important. But as long as you just got to be authentic. Don't be an asshole. Be kind to people. A lot of the reason, he'll probably never see this, so fuck you, Gio. But a lot of the reason I was able to get a big clientele on my own is because a company I worked for was taking advantage of people in LA. Like, you know, if you go to someone's house and you tell them you need to change your water heater, it's going to be $7,000, and they have no idea. And I was always very honest, and I would just tell them like, you have to do this or you don't have to. And I think a lot of my clients saw that, and that I kind of went behind my boss's back saying like, you don't have to do this. Like, it's not worth it. And a lot of those clients stayed with me. I took most of them with me. So I think just being honest and being real with people and being cool. It's all about being a good hang.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You gotta be cool.
No, I believe in that. Honestly, that's all what this is about. Is you
We're
gotta make
trying
everything
our
cool.
best, you
Make
know?
everything cool.
I mean, we've known each other since like middle school.
Yeah.
And so just a good time here.
Good time.
Do you guys didn't go to college either?
No? Well,
Well, I'm in
Kayla.
college
You're
right
in
now.
college,
Yeah, I
yeah,
go to
yeah.
USC right now. I do go to USC.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of like stigma that goes
So you're
around.
so you're interviewing me about not going to college.
Exactly. But that's the like point of the show, because I mean, even though I do go to USC, I still feel like very lost about like, I'm also doing business admin, which sue me, I know, but I also still feel lost and like confused about, you know, like having a successful career or like adulting in general. So we're taking two different paths, but we're pretty much
How old
kind
are
of
you guys?
in the same boat.
20.
You're
21.
20 and 21?
Yeah.
I'm 34.
Wow.
20s are terrifying though.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
Any advice?
Just your 20s are the time to like have fun and figure it out. I didn't really like figure it out until like 30. Like I was so afraid to get older and turn 30, and my 30s have been the best years of my life. One thing I hear from like a lot of actors and musicians is like, you never have a plan B. Like just pick your one thing and go all in. If you have a plan B, like it means you're never going all in on your dreams. And I think that's bullshit. I think that is such a false narrative for people chasing their dreams. Because what happens if you don't have a backup plan and you run out of money and you're stuck in LA and you have to move back home? I think it's great to have a plan B. It's worked for me, and I just think that whole don't have a backup plan is bullshit.
Yeah.
It's complete bullshit.
You know, Dave is so funny because he's such a like, you know, he has that like rock star look to him, pulls up in the fucking leopard Chelsea boots. Like he was not messing around.
He was not playing around, you guys.
He wasn't. So real of him though, to like be like, sure, I'll be a plumber, do it all his life, ends up making a shit ton of money and is still making music. I envy that man very much. That sounds ideal, and genuinely, like I've said this before, but he's like one of the biggest reasons where I'm like, if all else fails, I will become a plumber, or at the very least a property manager or something.
You know, I think more than anything, it's like, it's okay to have a backup plan. Like maybe you don't need to put all of your eggs in one basket. It's crazy. But I think honestly, it really just shows that, yeah, you can pursue both. Sometimes you might have to sacrifice your time and pay more attention to one or the other. But at the end of the day, you can do both.
Yeah, I do agree with that. So next up is one of our friends, Marco, who is also a 21-year-old that decided not to go to school because he really did not want to be in debt, because basically all his teachers just scared him that like that he was going to be in debt forever, which is so real. I always heard so many teachers complaining about it. Here's a conversation with Marco.
Hi, my name is Marco. I'm 21 and I currently work as a office administrative assistant. I primarily deal with the invoices and data entry for my department.
And are you in school?
No, I'm not in school. But one thing that did kind of help me make my decision was early on I would take note to what my teachers were saying, and most of them like would have a pretty significant financial debt that they would keep talking about, that they would try to pay off and stuff. And that's something I really try to avoid.
So you think the main reason you didn't pursue school after high school was because of, like, the financial situation?
Yeah, that's something I really try to avoid.
How far can you get at this company? Is there room to kind of keep going up in your career? Are you planning on staying with that company?
That's a pretty good point. But yeah, there's a lot of room to grow. There's plenty of different things. Like I primarily deal with different departments as well, like our accounts payable or some general managers. You know, there's pretty big room to grow, you know, and that's something I want to pursue. I want to kind of get to a more corporate level because stuff like data entry, data analytics, you know, stuff like that, it's pretty interesting to me, you know.
Do you think you would ever see yourself going to college in the future, or just like a vocational school, or just like any type of
college? Not really. The one thing that's always interested me was trade school, you know, for small trades or stuff like that, whether like I've always been into computers and stuff, so coding or anything like that, or computer science always interested me.
So you said you kind of have been thinking about trade work or it interested you. Did you ever consider
Yeah.
going to trade school after high school?
I did, but I wanted to ensure that like it was something I wanted to do. Like I know for a while, like I thought automotive was what I wanted to do, but after like some thought and stuff, I was like, yeah, maybe not. Let me take back from that. Yeah.
And so if it wasn't for the debt and if you could afford to pay your way through school, a 4-year degree specifically, is that something that you would have liked to do?
Not really, unless I'm going into something like computer science, but what's God for? Or, you hear it a lot, like lots of people want to go in for like the college experience and something like maybe, yeah, sure. Like for me, that's something that's always been like interesting, like, what's the college experience like? How much different is it, If so, yeah, if I did have the money, yeah, I would have.
After high school, did you have any doubts about not going to college? Because I feel like a lot of times it's told
Yeah,
it's like
for
the
sure,
only
for
route.
sure.
So were you nervous or anything?
Yeah, for sure I was, because you hear it a lot, and especially seeing like a lot of people take that route and kind of being like one of the like very, very few like not to, you kind of like, damn, was this the right choice? Am I doing the right thing? Is this really what I want to do? Like, yeah, that's something I've definitely experienced during the first like year.
And how did you deal with that?
Well, for a moment, I kind of like took some time, and that's something I'm glad I did, because coming out of it, like I was like, am I doing the right thing? There's so many things I wanted to pursue. I was like, should I pursue this? Should I pursue this? Like, all right, this makes money, but is it what I want to do? A lot of questions. So I kind of recognized that, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna take some time to like kind of like just think about it, just kind of build something. So kind of like build something where I can sustain myself day to day, kind of build that and see like where I wanted to go from there.
Did you ever feel any pressure from your parents or family to go to college?
Yeah, for sure. That's where the pressure was the biggest, especially coming from immigrant families who like basically sacrificed their whole comfort or way of living, their homes, just come here and try to give us the best opportunity. For them to constantly hear like, college is the best route and everything, like the same stuff we hear, to then see a lot of us like be like, you know what, no, that's not the route I want to take. And for them, like that's something that they had to, for me, my parents had to learn. At first they were very strict up on me, and they were like, no, like we want you to go to school, that's your only option, that's the only thing you're gonna do. And then after a while, like talking to them and helping them and informing them, yeah, for sure, it kind of changed. But yeah, that's where the pressure really was the biggest through my family.
And you don't feel that pressure anymore now that they understand it?
No, once they seen me grow and kind of seen what I was really trying to do and stuff, now they basically like applaud me. They're proud of me, see me grow constantly and be promoted, all these things, so it's something they're very proud of.
And how about you? Are you proud of yourself?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm glad I kept up like the good work, that ethic, and stuff. And I'm glad that really showed through. And I'm proud to see myself like step out of my comfort zone for sure and build an actual career out of what I do.
Honestly, I feel like so many teachers, like we said earlier, so many teachers were fear-mongering. Like even at our school, I did hear a lot of teachers talking about how they were in debt and complaining about it and how they were probably going to be in debt for the rest of their lives. But they never said anything about financial aid and the fact that like for most low-income students, we do receive financial aid, and going to college, maybe even community, probably would have been financially feasible. But I think there was probably a lot of students that just heard I'm in debt and never heard anything about financial aid. And that heavily influenced their decision to not go to school, which I think is so heartbreaking.
And I think a lot of the kids that we were around in our school, they came from a place of financial insecurity. So hearing that, oh, now I'm going to have to owe money, like large amounts of money, that's so scary. And so I think that's why a lot of people right after high school, they might not pursue higher education and go straight into, okay, I need to make money. What's the fastest way that I can make money? And then it's just a cycle.
So up next, we have a little bit of a different situation. Our friend Amanda, who's a 22-year-old that dropped out of high school actually to start developing apps, and of course decided to not go to college and is now making a living as an app developer. Very unique story to say the least. So here's our conversation with her.
I have a little bit of a crazy story and a crazy background. So pretty much I started developing apps super young. I left high school at 16 when I got a grant to run a nonprofit. And since then, pretty much, I work on software that's really specifically about like a really big issue. Sometimes it's like mental health, domestic violence, housing, social services. Right now, I'm CTO of a natural disaster mitigation company. So we're trying to figure out like how do we help people actually prepare their homes for natural disaster. But pretty much, I'm just like super into software, into designing it, writing it, using it, being part of that process in any specific way. So
it is such a unique story. How has it been, your experience socially, knowing that you didn't finish high school and you didn't go to college and you've been doing your own thing for a while?
It's been a really hard. One of the reasons, so I used to be more in like mental health advocacy and in that space, and I actually left because when I was 18, I got an autism diagnosis, and it pretty much changed my entire thought process of what I could do and like what kind of situations I wanted to be in. Because I feel just like a lot of pressure to perform and a lot of pressure to be good at my job, I really kind of let social stuff slip by the wayside, which has not been necessarily the greatest for me. But I sometimes like I'll be sitting in a restaurant and like I'll see a friend group like going out to a bar, and I kind of just like sit and I'm like, I will never have that like college experience of like being like, let's take 10 edibles and like go get fucked up at a club. Like I will never have that. But I do try to not let that stand in my way, and I try to not like, I don't know, I try to not let it make me self-conscious.
Yeah, no, it's such a real experience, especially I think, I didn't go to school either. And throughout the episode, we've been talking to people that also have never been to college. And I think all of us feel that same level of isolation. I think we in particular maybe feel it a little bit more because all of our work is so isolated. Like we're not in a corporate office. We don't even really have like workmates, I don't get all the coworker drama that I hear other people my age talking about. And it's such a difficult feeling to not get that sense of FOMO.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing that I've just tried to keep in mind is like, I just moved, so my entire kind of like social system has been uprooted, but I focus mostly on like, how do I maintain the relationships that I already have, / like, how do I feel like I'm in college and like I'm young again? I think a really big thing for me was I like started working so young that developmentally I felt really weird, where it's like as a kid I was like I'm an adult, and now like as an adult I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've missed like all of these things and I'm still a teenager. And so like I've let myself like go clubbing and like dancing, and I'm like really into goth clubbing now, which is really fun. And I kind of let myself like do more like not childish, but I guess just more like adolescent things. Like I'll like go spend like $50 on Miffy or something like that. So I kind of let myself be a little bit like adolescent.
That really resonated because I also started working from a really young age, right? Like since I was like 13, I've been doing stuff on the internet as well. And it's weird because everyone tells you you're so grown for your age, you're so mature, you're so ahead. Because professionally, like, we are. It seems like we really are. But like socially, it still feels like I'm like a kid. It's like this weird balance of, on paper, I seem like this like really grown 20-something that feels like very adult. But in our minds, it's like, I feel like a kid. Like I just want to do childish things and let myself do that. I feel that like 100%. And it's not easy. I mean, I love that you're like starting to let yourself. Do you ever get the feelings of, damn, like how am I gonna do this for the rest of my life? Like what is your feelings towards the future and like your career? Because I know startups are hard. Like I'm in it too. It's not easy.
Yeah, it sucks. Like I think for me, it's this layer of pressure where I see what I'm currently doing as like not only my career, but like my passion and like my life's work. But like my two biggest fears is that number one, like I'm not going to be able to take care of my dad, and that's going to be like terrible for me. Number two, that like at some point, like I already have gone through periods of like terrible like autism burnout where I'm just like, I'm never going to code again. Like I'm never like touching a computer in my life. And I'm really scared that, if I overrun my boundaries, that I'm just gonna like hit a wall and I'm gonna be like, I'm done. And to that, like I've decided if I get sick of technology, I'm gonna become an aircraft mechanic. And like that's like my life goal. That's like my backup plan. And so I try to think about it all the time of like, yeah, this like sucks and it's like a big risk, but also like the fact that I'm even able to do stuff and to put my life on the line right now is like a really big sign not only of progress, but of like privilege for me, because there's like so many other people who have similar backgrounds to me, and like they are working jobs that they don't necessarily like, that don't provide a lot of like general things that they can do in their life, or like they feel like it's a dead end, or they feel like it's not like their passion. And so I try to like also take all of the stress with a grain of salt, and also just being like, worst case scenario, like it fails, and pretty much everything on this earth will fail. So I'm just trying to keep it in check.
So what's your definition of success look like right now? Like, what does a successful life look like?
I think when I was younger, success was like, I'm gonna be Mark Zuckerberg, like I'm gonna be like that tech person. And now it's just like, I want to build something I like without feeling like I'm losing my soul, or without like feeling that I'm becoming a person I don't want to be to survive in an industry that I need the validation of. And so I think just like my friends are cared for and loved, and that like I'm gonna be okay is what success is to me right now.
And so if you had to go back to high school, knowing what you do now, are you finishing high school? Are you going to college? Or are you like, no, I think that was the best move?
You know, I probably would have left high school, but I would have gotten some, like, I would have taken advantage of a couple more things. Like, Lisa Johnson, who was like a really big person at Apple, was like, do you want me to write you a college recommendation letter? And I was like, no. Like a dumbass. I was like, no. And I was like, I wish now I would have taken that, and I would have potentially like gone to a trade school. I wish I would have learned some skills like outside of startup stuff that I could rely on if anything went badly. Or I wish I would have told myself, start building up a body of work and start treating your life like it is a business that, or start treating your career like a business that you run, because it is. And like ultimately, like if you're not going to college, you're not getting A, the alumni network, or B, any of the certificate of knowledge that a college gives, and you have to find those things in other ways. And you have to like make your own network, and you have to prove constantly that you know stuff. And I wish I would have spent more time thinking about, okay, how do I not only like prove myself to others, but how do I develop these skills in a way that's not going to burn me out? And I think that's something that college would have helped with, but I think it's still stuff that can be found outside of college. The last thing I would say is don't do stuff that is your passion, but do stuff that lets you do your passion, or lets you get better at things that are related to your passion. Like initially I was like, oh, I'm gonna do like nonprofit stuff, and like nonprofit stuff is like my world. And then I was like, nonprofit doesn't pay anything, and it's very hard, and it's definitely like a wealthy person's club. And I wish I would have chosen a career that would have let me develop my passion without running on it.
I feel like dropping out of high school is just like a whole nother level, but so good for her that she's managed to make it work. It's so interesting how relatable all these issues are. Like everything that she was telling me about feeling isolated, wishing she hadn't passed up so many opportunities that could have been good for her, is like so real. I feel like I face a lot of that, especially the community, but I'm so serious that at this point, like we just need a network for people that didn't go to college. Like what is the uniting brand for all of us?
Yeah, it's also, we have to give ourselves grace too. We're so young. We don't really know how these choices and decisions are really impacting us and our futures. But I mean, she's doing amazing for herself. So I'm so proud of her.
That's so true. That's such a good point of like, you really don't know like how these actions that these decisions you make when you're young are going to affect you, which is why people are so mad about like, why am I 18 choosing to go hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt? Like that obviously doesn't make any sense. But in this next part, I want to talk with someone that has a very interesting story. So they wrote a book called Uneducated, which documents the story of their experience being in the professional world and starting a career without a college degree. His name is Christopher Zara, who is now working as a senior news editor at Fast Company. But it wasn't always like that. He basically went through like this whole, he describes it as this kind of like fuck up. Throughout the first like 30 years, he was just like living this crazy life, had behavioral issues, was getting kicked out of here, had substance abuse issues, but he managed to turn it all around. I think he got his first unpaid internship when he was in his 30s. And his story just really inspired me because while we were talking, I almost felt like I was seeing myself in him. Like there was so much of me that I was like, that is literally me in the future. Like these feelings are so relatable. the FOMO of it all, the where do you go to college question. I mean, it's crazy, but yes, please enjoy this interview with Christopher. So, Christopher, tell the audience about yourself.
I essentially didn't finish high school. I had I got into some trouble in high school around 11th grade. I had behavioral issues. The school got fed up with me. They kind of kicked me out. I wandered around a good part of my 20s. Had some issues with drugs and lived this life of bohemia where I had a lot, roommates and did retail and all that kind of stuff. Until I was about 30 years old, and I really just woke up one day and panicked and said, "What am I going to do with my life? This can't be the rest of my life." And so I decided I was going to try to pursue writing and freelance. I started as a freelance writer. I pitched a magazine and got an assignment on my first pitch, and I saw that as a really great omen. Like, this is something I could maybe do for a living. And I pitched, I did a lot of freelancing for the first couple of years, and then I decided I was going to come to New York City, where all of media, I assumed all of media happened at that time. And so I came to New York and I did an unpaid internship when I was 35 years old at a small newspaper called Show Business Weekly. It was a newspaper for actors and people who work in Broadway. And at that newspaper, I happened to get, a little bit of luck where one of the editors left and I got a staff job there, and I just learned the ins and outs of the business at that newspaper, and kind of took that experience and went on to work in digital media, and then now where I am today at Fast Company magazine, where I'm the senior editor on the news desk.
So you said you were kicked out of high school for behavioral issues. So, I mean, were you not, I'm assuming you wouldn't consider yourself a good student, or?
Yeah, so that's a little bit of it's a complicated question. Like, I could have been a good student. I think it's a shame almost that school is sometimes seen as an exclusive domain for young people, because I think as you get older and mature, I feel like I would have done better sitting down in a classroom when I got a little bit older.
Do you feel like if you were younger, you would have liked to go back to school?
Yeah, I do. I feel like we were just discussing this earlier, but I feel like I missed out on a crucial element of life. And I'm not saying it's something that people need. Obviously, like my own story, this part of the reason I wanted to write this book is because I want people to understand that there are different paths and that not everyone needs to have the same path of college. But I also, speaking personally, feel like I missed out on a fundamental thing that I would have enjoyed. Being in the classroom, making college friends, learning from mentors and those kinds of things that that only college can give you.
I mean, even now, even though you're older, do you ever have thoughts of going back to college?
I do, but just not realistically. And I say this only because my current job keeps me really busy. I have to knock on glass when I say that, because I'm so thankful to have the job and I love doing it. But it's the news business. Like, there's not a lot of time for anything else when you work in this kind of a job. Which is fine. I've made the choice and I enjoy it. But if something were to happen where I had a little bit more free time, I would definitely consider it, yeah.
Is that a feeling that was present when you were younger, or is it only really resurfacing now of, gosh, I kind of wish I did go to college?
That's a really good question. I think it's probably a more recent thing. It's not something that I felt as acutely. And part of that is when I did get into working in media, everybody you work around has gone to college. Is this huge assumption, that you've gone to college because you're there. It's like no one really asks. People don't talk about it or ask, people will ask, where'd you go to school? That's a normal thing to be asked.
Right.
And I was always scared to death that someone was going to ask me that question.
Yeah. Small school and
Yeah,
you wouldn't know.
Yeah, I'm seriously terrified. The power of that assumption that college being the default way into my business, into journalism. The power of the assumption that you've done that it's really hard to explain when you don't have that that piece of paper. And so even having those discussions about college would just terrify me. But it also taught me because I work almost exclusively with people who have gone to really good schools often, or people who have gone to college, you know, maybe state schools or colleges that aren't well known. A lot of times Ivy League colleges, but like I've learned, well, I learned what I missed, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like I learned by interacting with my colleagues what I missed out on.
I have a question about that feeling of, yeah, like it's so weird, and because I mean, that's small talk, you know, that's like small talk 101. It's like, oh, where'd you go to school? What's your major? What was your major, etc. And I feel it even now. Like I'm only 21, and like everyone's still in school, and so obviously, like when I go to any sort of social events, like a bunch of college students talking to each other, even if it's the summer, about like, oh, where are you gonna go back after this? And I'm like, I'm not in school right now.
Yeah, that never ends, by the way. It just it won't be where it's gonna be.
It's just reworded now.
Yeah, every date you ever go on, any time you sit down with someone at lunch, they're gonna ask you that question.
Where'd you go to school?
Exactly.
Oh, damn.
And do you still feel that like feeling every time, like that pit in your stomach?
Not so much since I wrote the book, because now it's weird because people people who know me know about the book, so that was sort of like a good coming out for me, I guess.
No, actually, coming
He's
out
coming
as
forward.
coming out as not having gone to school is so real. Yeah.
You know, at least for now, in the immediate term, I think probably it will always be this. I will feel that pit feeling.
But
for
also,
sure.
is it a pit, or is it almost like a flex, really? Like you're like, no, I didn't go to Yale, but I'm at the same company you're at. And I feel like that's the other side of this perspective of, yes, you can see not going to school as this like shameful thing, because it does feel like I'm an outcast, or maybe there's the imposter syndrome, which we'll get into. But on the other hand, there's like a sense of, I did this without school. I did this on my own merit, through hard work, through just pure talent and skill.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the backing of like a traditional institution to say, okay, you are qualified.
Yeah, so I never wanted to really think of it that way. I never wanted to think of it as like, well, look at what I got to do, you know, I did without college. And for a couple of reasons. You can't remove luck from the equation. You can't remove the fact that I'm a white guy. I probably had a lot of, you know, people gave me the benefit of the doubt when they might not have given a person of color the doubt. You can't remove those things from the equation. You don't always know when they're working in your favor. You don't know when luck plays a role. But I do know that like the combination of all those things is why I'm working where I am today. And one of those things is grit and hard work. Wow. But it's only one thing. And so I always try to downplay that aspect of it. But I would say my advice is, at this point, like I do think you can make your way in the world without a college degree. There's a lot of ways to do it. A lot of companies recognize that now. A lot more people are. I feel like people are recognizing the value of trade jobs a little bit more than they did like 10, 15 years ago. Because of the college debt situation, I think people understand now that not everyone's going to want to take on that debt. But I also think if you want to be in a classroom and you want that experience, as we were talking before, with the idea that college can help shape your identity, and you want to be shaped around that a little bit, I think you should pursue it. I wish I had. I really do kind of wish I could have done that and had that experience.
It was so fascinating to me knowing that feeling of imposter syndrome, it doesn't fully go away, which is so surprising, because you think that because he's successful in his career that he wouldn't have those feelings of, oh, I didn't go to college, or those feelings still creep up. But I guess it just lingers around. It's just learning how to navigate it and learning how to not let it be in your head all the time.
Yeah, I guess that like the social validation that college gives you is just really, really deep. Like it runs deep in your brain, your psyche, and the way that you interact with people from there on out. Like you'll never stop receiving the "where do you go to college" question. It's reassuring that he has found a way to be okay and have a good life, have a good job. But yeah, I guess maybe that imposter syndrome never quite goes away. I don't know, maybe that's an internal thing though. Maybe it just takes some like intense journaling or therapy sessions to get rid of whatever shame or anything else that's
How
present
many
there.
journal entries does it take to get rid of this imposter syndrome? I don't know. Gal, you tell us.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's going to take a while. Also, it's so comforting that he started his career technically so late. Like people say your 20s are like when you have to do it. It's like now or never. But, you know, he was just living life for that first 10 years of his 20s and turned out all right.
Honestly, that is so comforting to know that like there's just so much pressure on our 20s where this is a time that you're establishing your career. Like once you're in this industry, you're not getting out of it. You know, you got to climb up the ladder, and just knowing that it's never too late to really switch your career or just pivot to what you want to do is comforting in a way. And yes, it might be fucking hard, but at least you can do it.
Yeah. It's funny how like these interviews have been two very different sides. Like one has been very much blue collar work, you know, with Dave, with Marco, about this is what trade work could look like, and you could go that route. But there's also been the other route of this is what white collar work looks like, you know, being a software engineer or being in media and journalism. Both are options that you can go and choose to do so, even if you don't have a college degree. And so it's nice to know that you're not as limited as maybe people think you are when you don't have one. It's definitely harder. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, that's the biggest thing about this episode is all of this is hard, but it's possible, which is good. Okay, so we've heard a lot of stories about the different career pathways you can take, but now I want to talk with someone who writes a lot about these exact same issues, and that's David Deming. He's an Isabel and Scott Black Professor of Political Economy at the Harvard Kennedy School and the Faculty Dean of Kirkland House at Harvard College. So his research focuses on higher education, economic inequality, skills, technology, and the future of the labor market. I specifically wanted to talk to him because his early career research focused on the long-run impacts of schooling on later life outcomes. So we reached out to him because we wanted to know, like, what are the different outcomes and what does the data say about people that decide to not go to college or that decide to go to college? How does that impact everything that you do? But anyways, here's our conversation with David.
I think one of the really important things for young people to know about the value of a college degree is that it actually peaks a long time after you go to college. So what you're facing is this choice where right now you're borrowing a bunch of money to go to college, and you have to pay it back more or less as soon as you graduate, as Kayla knows probably. Certainly I know, I took out student loans myself. And at the time when you graduate, the college premium, meaning the difference in average earnings between people with a degree and people who don't have a degree, isn't that high. It's about 20, 25, 30% when you first graduate. But by the time you're, my age, 45 years old, the college wage premium is basically doubled. So it's more like 65 or 70% over somebody with a high school degree when you're in your 40s and 50s. And, your loans have been paid off by then. And so you have this situation where the costs are very upfront and the benefits are actually smaller when you first go than when they are every time. So again, what's the point here? The point is you're trying to get an education that's going to last you your whole life. And life is long. So make the decision with the long run in mind.
That is so interesting. I don't think I've ever thought of a college degree as peaking later in life. I feel like if anything, it would be when you're younger because you just graduate. And so now you're able to put this degree to use. But it's interesting knowing that it's actually working the other way around. So I would love to know why that is. I mean, what are the benefits when you're older and do have a college degree?
Yeah, so I could give you a lot of econ speak to answer that question, Kayla, but let me try to put it in simple terms. If you think about the kinds of jobs that have more wage growth associated with them, they are often professional occupations, things like, if you work in marketing or sales or in business more generally. An entry-level job in a field like that might pay you $50,000 to $60,000 for a college graduate, when they're graduating. Maybe a bit more, a bit less, depending on where you live and what the nature of the job is. Actually, that's a pretty similar salary to what truck drivers earn, $50,000 to $60,000. The difference is there's basically no upward mobility in the truck driving position. I mean, you can drive more, you can negotiate for a higher contract, etc., but there's no opportunities for promotion. It's just a job. It's kind of a job that stays the same as you get older. Whereas if you work in an entry-level position in marketing or sales or something, you have an opportunity to be promoted to a management role. You manage larger teams. You can get transferred to a different field. You can learn new skills, and the company will sometimes pay for that. And so what you see in a lot of jobs that tend to require college degrees is that they're not hiring you for today either. They're making an investment in you. Company hires a new college grad who basically knows nothing about the way the company operates and probably isn't adding that much value when they first start, but they understand that what they're buying is someone who has a kind of set of foundational skills or soft skills that allow them to learn more, allow them to know how to ask the right questions, know how to comport themselves in the workplace, and that with investment and training, they'll become a better employee over time. And so that's what's happening under the hood of all of it, is that some jobs have career ladders associated with them, and some of them are kind of what you see is what you get. And the jobs that require more education tend to be the ones that look more like ladders.
So that is definitely something that you hear a lot of. Yes, like ultimately there is more job mobility and you can go and get a promotion. And ultimately that's the goal of most people for corporate jobs, right? Climbing that ladder. But I'm curious if you have any data as to, is this actually happening? Like, are most people actually getting those promotions? Or are people ending up in a job they don't like, not really getting a promotion, not being appreciated, and then just getting laid off and fired a couple months into it?
Yeah, so now I am going to use a wonky term and say it depends on what counterfactual you have in mind, meaning what are you comparing it to? So most people who get a corporate job don't get promoted to be the head honcho, make tons of money. Some of them do, most of them don't. On the other hand, almost no one who takes a job in retail sales or a job in personal services of some kind gets a big promotion. So the difference is like, you're taking a 30% chance of getting a promotion versus a 5% chance of getting a promotion. And so if your ultimate goal is to earn quite a lot of money, you're much better off actuarially getting a college degree than not. That doesn't mean that it's impossible to do well without one, or that getting a degree is a guarantee of it. It just kind of, think about it like a lottery, and it gives you extra tickets, but you still might not win.
I feel like this is where it gets a little tricky for current college students, because a couple years ago, you're getting told that computer science is the way, and like this is how you're going to make a good living, and that this is the promise, this is the American dream. You're getting told to don't really pursue your passion, don't pursue your dreams, don't do what makes you happy, just get the financial stability. And I think the appeal for a lot of trade workers and to enter the trades is that there is a pretty significant job guarantee. Most trade workers are satisfied with their jobs. And if anything, it gives them the opportunity to both pursue what they're passionate about on the side and make a living. And it seems to me that a lot of people with college degrees are facing this dilemma of suddenly it seems like their degree is not worth as much as they thought it was going to be. And it's not worth the debt. And it's not going to provide them with everything that they were promised, especially with AI. So what does the current landscape look like for people with college degree? What is a good choice when deciding on a college path that you want to go down? Is it in STEM? Is it in the arts? How do you approach it?
Yeah, a lot wrapped in that question, Gael. So I'll try to unpack it a little bit. It's a very important one. I think in terms of trades versus college, the answer is if you have a passion for the trades and you're willing to work really hard in a skilled trade, you'll succeed. Nobody should feel like that's not a good path, period, for them. The other thing I'll say is, the debt component of this is an important component, but I think it's a little bit subtler than you might think. So the risk of going to college is not just I borrowed a lot of money. It's I borrowed money and I can't pay it back because I got a degree or I went to a college that didn't provide me with good value and I have low earnings. So when you look in the data at who defaults on student loans or who experiences substantial distress, actually the average amount of debt that people default on is quite low. It's something like $10,000, $11,000 is the average debt load people default on. That's not, it's not nothing, but if you have a middle class income, you can pay that back over 10 years. The problem is people borrow a lot of money to go to predatory for-profit colleges. They charge very high tuition and don't deliver very much value. And they've got 5 figures of loan debt and they can't get a job or maybe they didn't even graduate. And so that's impossible to pay off because they don't have high earnings. In contrast, you see a lot of people, the people who you read about in the news and who have 6-figure debt, most of them are in medical school or law school. And while they have huge debt, they're also going to have very high incomes and they will pay that debt back over time. So I say that just to say it's not just the debt, it's the value you're getting for the debt that really matters. And that's where I would encourage every one of your listeners to consider public schools, okay? Because they're cheaper and they're usually better than what you're going to get at an expensive private, especially for-profit college. And you'll borrow much less money. The average tuition at a public school is $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 a year. And there's federal student loans to help you pay for a lot of that. It's not as expensive as you think.
See, that brings us to the next point of people that are deciding to go to school and they're deciding between a private or a public or community college route. And we get told that all of these kind of have different value propositions depending on what kind of student you are. And I found it interesting because you also wrote an article called The Lottery for High-Paying Jobs After College. And in this article, you kind of just discussed that these high-paying jobs seem to be gravitating towards some of the more prestigious colleges. And so I'm curious, how does the current job market, and depending on where you went to school, contribute to the dynamics of the system? And what factors actually influence who wins and loses under it?
I would say going to an Ivy League school is like getting a higher seed in a tournament, or, you know, having somebody gives you like 100 tickets to win the Mega Millions rather than one, right? So you're probably still not winning, okay? So, and in which case, you're not that different from somebody who went to a state school, but at least it gets you in the door. And we're talking about these, what I would call tournament outcomes. So it's like, do you win a Nobel Prize? You know, do you become a senator? Like, very few people accomplish these things. But, and the pipeline for those, the funnel is extremely narrow, but it starts at these Ivy Plus universities. And so if that is not your aspiration, and it is not most people's aspirations, nor should it be, it's not mine, then it's not that big of a deal. It's not something you should stress out about. I continue to think, I hope this is clear from the way I'm talking about it, that I think good public universities are the best value in the college landscape, period. Because you're not paying super high tuition, and you're getting a lot of value for your money, and there's great faculty there, and you can get a great education in a broad variety of things. So I think that's something that people underrate.
It's reassuring that like you don't need a sprint and like have your mental health suffer by forcing yourself to study so much so you can get into an Ivy League school. You can probably just cruise at a good level, actually, right? Like life is a marathon, not a sprint. You can go to a state school, you go to community, you can go into trade school and get a pretty decent job. And ultimately that is success. And I feel like a lot of young people haven't really heard that narrative before because it's either all or nothing.
Guile, you brought me on for my expertise as an economist, so I don't know if your audience wants to hear my opinion on this question, but I'm going to give it anyway. Okay, so I think you're 100% right, and I would even say that it's not that you're settling. Okay, that's the wrong way to look at it. Like, you have to understand that most people, even people who go to colleges like Harvard, teach in colleges like Harvard, people like me, most people are not going to change the world. Okay, I am not going to change the world, most likely. I'd like to. It's not like I'm not trying. It's just probably not going to happen for me or most people. The biggest impact most of us will have on the world is on the people that we encounter on a day-to-day basis. So if you are a good parent, a good sibling, a good friend, a good teacher, and you have a positive impact on the people around you, that is a positive impact on the world, and that, for 99.9999% of people, is going to be the impact you have. So that's something all of us can do, you know? And it doesn't mean don't strive for I'm going to change the world and be on, have streets named after me and things like that. You can strive for that if you want to, but let's not act like it's definitely going to happen. And let's have a backup plan, which is be kind, be generous, help the people around you.
I love that. I think a lot of people often forget about that and are just focused on the big things ahead instead of thinking about their impact on a grassroots level. I think a lot of times being successful goes beyond just your career. It's also just based on if you're a kind person or not. And I think I see a lot of the times too that when people are applying to colleges, they're looking forward to the social aspect of it. They're looking forward to the college experience and being surrounded in community. But when you don't go to college, you have to look for that yourself. I mean, Gaius talked about just the difficulty in finding that community. But I would love to know whether a person is choosing between going to college or really just any other path. What should they consider in terms of the return on investment and job market trends? I mean, especially with AI, it feels like everybody's so scared that it's going to take over and ruin all of our jobs. But is that really something that we should be worried about? Is this being blown out of proportion? What should we just be considering when deciding our career?
Yeah, so great question. Let me take the AI part of this. So the technology gets invented, and then it takes a long time before it's really adopted. And so I don't think the AI impact will happen overnight, even if the technology appears to be advancing rapidly. That doesn't mean it'll change everything right away. The other big lesson, I think, is that it doesn't tend to destroy jobs as much as it changes them. Okay, so you're not going to get replaced, and other people have said this, but I think it's really true. You're not going to get replaced by an AI. You're going to get replaced by a person who knows how to use AI better than you. That's the real risk. So my advice to young people is to learn the technology, because everyone is going to be using it in your generation. It's the old dinosaurs like me who are going to be able to get by on not knowing how to use it, even though I like to use it because I'm interested in it. But like having already established a reputation and, gotten tenure at a research university, it doesn't really matter if I'm obsolete and I can't use AI, but it matters a lot for people who are half my age who have to get to where I am. So I think you need to understand it, take a proactive approach to it, see what it's useful for. My sense of it, I don't know if you guys have played around with ChatGPT or other things, is that it's really different than other computer technologies in the sense that it's kind of unpredictable. You don't really know what you're going to get when you ask it for something, and so you need to experiment a lot and try different things.
One last thing that I don't know if you particularly have done any research on, but I am curious to know about the value of that community, of that network, right? College gives you so much of it. You're meeting so many people at such a fast pace, whereas someone that doesn't go to school isn't doing that. Is there any research that shows that ultimately all the people that end up going to college and meeting all of those people end up in a significantly better place than those that don't have that network? So how important is that college network? Is there any research that shows if you don't go out and meet people, you're at a disadvantage?
It's a hard question to answer, Gail, because, when you look at the impact of going to college, it's kind of a mix of all these things. So if I'd say, I look at a bunch of people and when they go to college, they do better, is it the networks? Is it the stuff you learned in school? Is it the connection to, Goldman Sachs and other employers? It's kind of all of that wrapped up into one, and it's hard to separate them. That said, there's a lot of research on the importance of social networks, and it seems that they matter quite a lot. And one of the ways in which they matter, and this is a pretty old body of research, there's a lot of it out there, is I think what the sociologist Mark Granovetter calls weak ties. So the idea of it's not really your family and friends, it's people you know at one level of distance. So it's acquaintances you make in your professional networks in the course of life that really tend to matter a lot, because they know you well enough and you know them well enough that maybe they can vouch for you or they can introduce you to someone else, but they have a kind of multiplicative thing. So if you have, 12 close friends and each one of them has 5 friends, your friends' friends are, 60 rather than 12. And so it's important to have a good network of people, because that's a potential to introduce you to new opportunities. And so I think in terms of the strategy, like obviously you need to get out there, but I maybe this is just me, I'm kind of personally resistant to the idea of quote unquote networking, because it has this kind of feeling of using people instrumentally for things. I think I would say put yourself out there in the world, go to things, stretch yourself, don't shake up your routine, go out of your way to meet new people, not because you're trying to get a job from them, but because it's fun and interesting and it might lead to a job down the road. And I say this, by the way, as somebody who's a bit introverted in some ways. I doubt networking doesn't come, or cultivating social networks does not come naturally to me. It's something I've worked at, and it's something that every time I do, I'm kind of happy I did it. So I come home from work, I'm tired, I don't feel like going and doing something, but then every time I do it, I'm happy I did it. So the lesson is just go and have fun and talk to people and be interested in them. Reject cynicism. Just put yourself out there and see what life is presenting to you in any given day, and sooner or later it will work out for you.
Honestly, I feel like my biggest takeaway from that conversation was that thing about AI, that it really is going to be about who can use it better. I have seen this, the same idea being spread around on tech Twitter and such. And I really think it is that. It's everyone's going to be able to make an app because there's already so many AI no-code tools. And everyone's going to be able to just play around with it and harness the power. And whoever can harness that power the best is going to be the most efficient. They're going to be able to create crazy automations for things that you didn't even think were possible. But that is what it's going to be. Who can use AI the best, I guess.
It's going to be me. No, I'm just kidding.
It's going to be you.
Watch out. No, I definitely agree with what you're saying. And I think also something that just really...
No, because I'm thinking chat, please clean up this text for me.
No, literally. Please reword this in a professional way.
Literally that's me harnessing the power.
But some people aren't doing that, and their email is not professional, so they get weeded out.
It's the bar is even lower for good work.
That's what it actually really is. It's kind of sad, but oh yeah, I think something that he said that stuck with me is that I think a lot of people get stuck on the success aspect of a career and just life in general, but the most impact that they're going to have is their interactions with other people and how they show up in that area. Literally, that's so fucking true. All it takes is smiling to a random person on the street, saying hi. And I think that just really sticks with me overall. It's just knowing that success is in your everyday life and you just have to show up.
Yeah, but thank you so much to David for joining us. I hope all of you got some valuable insights from him and all the other guests that we just heard from. But before we end the episode, of course, we just have a couple of final thoughts. So let's get into those.
Do you think if you weren't, let's say you did go to college, and
if I had that degree,
and you went to college, and you have to choose a corporate job post grad, what would you see yourself doing?
God, something in like the teen and the youth adolescent space, helping either teenagers and young adults in some way. Ideally, like how to have them connect with one another more. I've always said, like, it's funny how this is all, like, my meaning and my purpose in life has always had a sort of red string through it. And it's always been, how do I help young people feel less alone? And I remember on our last show, we did an episode and I think we talked about this, about like, what would you guys be doing? And I was like, I don't know what job I want. I just know maybe it's some sort of like curating experiences and helping people feel emotions. That was basically me saying I want to develop like third spaces for young people. And that's
It's always been
what
like
we're
just
working on.
right in front of you, just like a little bit far off. Yeah.
Do you know what you would want to do?
I think I've had that similar, like I find the most satisfaction in helping people, and obviously like being able to create third spaces and create media to aid that feels very, very satisfying. But I don't know if this is my why, you know? I think it's one of the whys. And I think it's prompting me closer to that main thing, you know? But I'm also like 21. Like
Maybe your why is just looking hot and sexy and awesome.
That's what I've been saying.
And helping other people feel hot and sexy and awesome.
I've actually thought about that. No, not about me like feeling that, but like, again, it goes back to helping other people.
Just
you
in
know?
what way?
It's just like, in what way? But at the end of the day, guys, we are just confused and we're trying.
We're just some confused ground kids.
Exactly. And we're trying our best at this. And I think, you know, even this episode and talking with everybody, I feel just a little bit more prepared.
Yeah.
And I feel not as
Confused,
pessimistic
as
and
scared.
confused.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean, look, it's that feeling, especially as you go from being a teenager. Like, you're 18 and they're like, what's your meaning in life? What's your purpose in life? What do you want to do for the rest of your life? And you got to go and possibly get into a ton of debt to do that. Like, that doesn't make sense. So easy to just feel like you don't know what you're doing, even at this age. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening and tuning in to this episode of GrownKid.
New episodes will be coming out every Thursday, you guys, so make sure to follow the show so that you can get notifications when new episodes are live. And if you're cool, give us a rating or a review or leave a comment down below. And if you're listening on Spotify, you can answer the Q&A or poll under each episode, because we would love to know what you're thinking.
Yeah, guys.
Let us know. And keep up with us on all social media at GrownKid everywhere, so you can see behind the scenes and get to know
Get to know us a little bit more.
Exactly.
Why wouldn't you want
Don't
that,
be
guys?
shy.
Don't be shy.
Come on over. But that is it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. I had an amazing time.
Thank you, guys. Anyways, yes. See you next Thursday.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.